IATI's Country Development Finance Data Tool allows you to download and analyze IATI data published by more than 1,400 organizations about external resource flows to developing countries. This data is available in simple Excel spreadsheets for each country or region. Using these spreadsheets, you can easily analyze data using a pivot table. The content on the Country Development Finance Data Tool is available in English, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. In this video, you'll learn how to download IATI data and understand the data fields in the spreadsheets. To start, visit the IATI Country Development Finance Data Tool at countrydata.iatistandard.org. Then scroll down and select the country whose data you're looking for. Select your language, click Download, and open the Excel spreadsheet. This data is from the organizations who report to IATI. These organizations range from donor governments, development finance institutions, and UN agencies to non-governmental organizations, foundations, and the private sector. When organizations publish new or updated IATI data, it's available in these spreadsheets within 24 hours. This particular spreadsheet contains information on development and humanitarian activities. An activity can be an individual project or another unit of development and humanitarian work. The unit of work described by an activity is determined by the organization that is publishing the data. For example, an activity could be a donor government providing $50 million to a recipient country's government in order to implement basic education over 5 years. Another activity could be an NGO spending $500,000 to deliver clean drinking water to 1,000 households over 6 months. The rows in the spreadsheet show the amount budgeted for the activity, or the resources committed or spent for the activity, aggregated into quarters. Each row is the portion of the quarterly aggregation, where all values in all other data fields are the same. To analyze this data, you'll need to understand what information is contained in each data field. In column A, you'll see the IATI identifier. This is IATI's unique code for each activity. Column B provides the title, which is the name of the activity. The reporting organization is the organization that has published data on the activity. Each organization has their own unique code called the IATI Organization Identifier, which appears here. For example, the African Development Bank's organization identifier is XMDAC 46002. The reporting organization type describes the type of organization that has published the data on the activity. IATI has its own list of organization types with accompanying codes for each. One organization type are governments, which are more commonly known as bilaterals. Other examples are multilaterals and international NGOs. The aid type is the type or modality of aid being provided. For example, this could be project support or budget support. The finance type is the type of assistance provided, specifically whether the resources are being provided as a grant or a loan, or a number of other finance types. In this column and a few others, you might see a few cells where no data appears. This likely means that an organization has not included this information in their data. The flow type distinguishes resources between official development assistance, other official flows, and private flows. The provider organization is the organization who has provided the funding. This is usually the same organization as the reporting organization, but not always. As you review the data in the provider and receiver organization data fields, you may notice that the same organizations are referenced by multiple variations of their name. In some cases, you may just find a code instead of a name. The receiver organization is the organization receiving the funding for the activity. Publishers can specify which organization receives a particular transaction. If not included, the spreadsheet assumes that the implementer of the activity has received the transaction. If multiple implementers are reported, then all of these will appear in the cell. The next column shows transaction type. This data field includes the different types of resource flows in and out of an activity, and the resources budgeted for the activity. For example, the value of the activity's budget is captured under Budgets, and spending is captured by Disbursements and Expenditures. You can look up all 5 transaction types in the Country Development Finance Data Tool's guidance. You can look up the possible values for all the data fields in the spreadsheet. The recipient country or region is the country in which the activity is taking place and where resources are being spent. This will show the country or region that you selected from the drop-down at the beginning of your search. The data in the multi-country column tells you if the activity has one or more recipient countries. 0 means that the activity has only one recipient country or region, and 1 means the activity has multiple recipient countries. When an organization publishes data about an activity that includes more than one recipient country or region, they allocate a percentage of that activity's funding for each country or region. The percentage allocated to each country is then applied to the transaction value, which you will see in columns V, W, and X of the spreadsheet. When working with data that has more than one recipient country or region, it's important to understand that the transaction value is only an estimate. For example, if an activity has recipient countries of Zimbabwe and Zambia with 50% allocated to each country, 50% has been applied to the transaction values for that activity in the Zambia file. You can choose to filter these activities out if you don't want to include them in your analysis. The next two columns provide data on the sector that the activity is supporting. Sector category provides the broad sector group. For example, education. The sector column shows the specific sector within that sector category that the activity is supporting. For example, in this row, it's basic life skills for adults. Therefore, sector category is more aggregated than sector, meaning there are fewer possible values in sector category than in sector. The data in the humanitarian column indicates whether the resources are addressing a humanitarian crisis. A value of 1 means that the resources are categorized as humanitarian, and 0 means that they are not. The next three columns detail the calendar year and calendar quarter the transactions or budgets happened in. The calendar year and quarter joins these two values together, allowing you to easily filter based on time period. The URL provides the link to the activity page on dPortal. This is another one of IADI's data access tools. Here, you can see the full scope of data reported by an organization for this activity. Finally, the transaction values are available in USD, Euro, and a local currency. To see the list of local currencies by country, you can visit the Data Notes page of the CDFD tool. You may see negative values in the spreadsheet. Negative values often appear because money was returned to a donor or a commitment to spend money was adjusted or withdrawn. We have now looked at every data field in the spreadsheet from the IADI Country Development Finance data tool. Before you start accessing this data, here are a few final things to keep in mind. First, the spreadsheets contain a subset of all the data fields that organizations have published about each activity. Second, the data available is dependent on the timeliness and completeness of the data published to IADI. Some organizations publish monthly or quarterly, while others only publish annually. If data is not available for a particular organization that publishes to IADI, it could mean that they have not yet published for the time period you are analyzing. To get a better understanding of which organizations have published resource flows, you can check out the table on data gaps by year on the Data Notes page. And lastly, when downloading spreadsheets in languages other than English, it's important to note that although we have made as much of the data as possible available in other languages, you will still find some data in English. You should now have a better understanding of the data provided by IADI's Country Development Finance data tool. For more information, download our full guidance. To learn how to analyze this data, watch our next video on how to analyze data on external development finance.